Hey guys, good morning and welcome to another episode of Behind the Closed Doors. It's been a while. And of course we all know why it's been a while. Thanks to Corona. Well, today it's the first workshop and it's going to be a test trial. So we only have one student and our model Nadine. And I just want to see if it's possible to do everything safely in that 1.5 meter distance economy. And I do have my doubts, but hey, we did everything we could to make it a safe place. So let's see how it works out. And of course, you guys are with me during today's episode of Behind the Closed Doors. And look, Chewy and Anna-Week, of course, also over there. Now, of course, it's not only that 1.5 meter distance. You have to watch out for a lot of stuff. But of course, we have this poster, 1.5 meter distance, but also these things on our door. Now, normally, of course, you open the door with your hands, but that's not advisable at the moment. So we actually created, well, we didn't invent this, we just bought it, but we created this on our door. So now you can just use your arm and then open the door. And there we have our trained guard dog. Not really. And of course the same thing on the inside. And of course by now you all know wash your hands, right? Well, we have something better. Now as soon as you enter, we have this little sanitary station with hand gel, the 1.5 meter distance, some wipes, some cloth, or paper, sorry, and of course a spray button. Now also when you have to go to the restroom, again, do it with your arms. Now normally during the workshops, of course, you get soda, water or coffee. At the moment we don't want to do that because, well, you can also transmit the virus, of course, via materials. So we bought some bottles of water. Of course we cleaned them, so now when the student actually picks them up, they are 100% clean. So make sure that you don't touch any surfaces and make sure that you create a safe environment when you do something. Now, even when you take a lot of precautions like this, there still is the chance of infection via the air, of course. So make sure that we take 1.5 meter distance during the whole day, but also that there's a lot of ventilation in our studio. So in a moment, we're going to open up the back door and we're going to use fans to actually create a little bit of a draft. I don't know how much that's going to work, but at least we try, right? So I think overall it's a pretty safe environment. And of course in our studio, just follow me, we have more than enough room to keep your distance. So this is our little hallway. This is the only part that's actually a little bit narrow. But over here, well, I think there's plenty of room to keep it safe. Now, of course, during the workshop, all our attendees will get their own remote controls. Because this is, of course, also one of the risks. Because I touch a remote control, I give it to somebody else, right? So we actually asked Hansel to send us remote controls for 8 students. Now, we're not going to do a workshop with 8 students right away, but you never know how long it's going to take. So every student that will be in a workshop with me will actually get its own remote control. So from the moment you're inside until the moment you go, nobody touches the stuff that you use. Not your drinks, well, the restroom. That's the only problem, but we're going to clean that after every visit. So what more can you do? Right? Yes, sit at home, but that's not an option because this is taking so long and we've been at home for almost 3 months. So we really are looking forward to doing this. But normally the workshops are with 8 students. Now we're actually going to bring the groups back to 3, maximum 5. And today's our trial run with only 1 student. That's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, for set number 1, high key, white backdrop, 2 strobes on the back with background reflectors, of course, 1 beauty dish on the front. And in all honesty, when you do that, you have a perfectly white backdrop, if you use a light meter, of course, and use the light meter, of course, in reflective, because in reflective you get 18% gray. And from 18% gray, you just overexpose 2.5 stops and you have pure white. But that's a side note. So anyway, white backdrop, strobe on the front. But is that really low key, or sorry, high key? No, For me, high key is also that nice wraparound effect of the lighting. So normally when you take a picture against a white backdrop, which is something else for me than high key, you actually try to do it as nicely as possible. So the hairs are literally visible. You don't see any of those blocks where the hairs get bitten out by the light. Everything is perfect. But for a high key shot, I really want something more spectacular. So what I do is I just light the backdrop normally, use a reflector on the front, in this case then our beauty dish, and then you have that perfect shot. But then I change one slight thing, and that's actually a pretty big thing. I turn off the main light, so in this case our beauty dish. And now I open up 2, maybe 2.5 stops, and then your backdrop actually becomes your new light source, and then it wraps around your model. You can get some cool shots with that. Now later, what you can always do, if you see that there's a little bit darkness in her eyes, use that front light, but move it back like 2 or 3 meters. Turn it on the lowest setting and just give a little bit of accent. And for me, that's that nice wraparound effect and gives it that high key look. But do remember, if you ask 10 photographers about high key, 10 photographers will tell you something completely different. And that's the cool thing about this kind of stuff. It's always what you make of it. So let's take a look at the first results. For the next setup, we used our click prop backdrops. I really like those backdrops. Nadine did some awesome styling, and for this one, I wanted to do it a little bit more toned down. So what we did is actually use a light from the side and then just give a little bit of an accent with a blue gel. Now, of course, you can overdo that effect and then you get a lens flare from the blue, but in this case I didn't want it. Just a very slight accent on our shadow, which will turn blue, and then of course a little bit of an accent on the model itself. Now how you do that is pretty simple. You use a technique called feathering. So you don't aim the strobe straight at your model, you actually turn the strobe away, and now you only use the sides of that light. And that means that you can pinpoint the light, that it hits the shadow just a little bit to make it blue, but it doesn't overexpose that whole wall. And you can still hit your model, because you literally just use the side of that light by turning that light away from your model. Very powerful technique, awesome results, and you can also use it outside or inside if, for example, you have too much power on your strobe and you need to lower the power. Just feather the light away from the model, and the sides are always a little bit less in light intensity. Let's go to the next set. Now for the third set we wanted a little bit of motion. Red dress, awesome, click prop backdrops and a wind machine. A little bit of motion in the dress, let Nadine just move around a little bit, and at that point, normally I always tell you guys, don't shoot too much, something like this. Shoot the heck out of the scene, for the very simple reason you're shooting digital, you can always delete images, but oh my, when you shoot it like your life depends on it, just keep shooting. You will also get all those nice in-between shots. And the nice thing with motion is if you let your model pose and she's in that static pose, the wind still does the motion in the dress, but somehow it just doesn't click. And when your model just moves around and you have the wind machine, that's when those images really start to work. Now, I'm not 100% satisfied with the images I got, but I still like them a lot. So, let's take a look at the images.
Just get tired show you what a good time looks like. You can do better. You can do better. Let me show you what a good time looks like. You can do better. I dare you to be wilder.
The final set was a quickie. Against the backdrop, we still also have that backdrop, by the way, in our signature series in ClickProp backdrops. So if you like this backdrop, make sure you check them out. I will leave the link in the comments below. But anyway, against the wall, and in this case, Anna actually came in and she said, hey Frank, because the door is open because we have to ventilate for Corona, she said, don't you have any problems with the light coming in? And at that point, of course, you guys know this, right? Because we're using strobes, so you're actually overpowering the ambient light. But it did give me a really cool second option to shoot this. So the first image you're gonna see is actually with the strobe. In this case, just a simple beauty dish with 2 grids. That's the cool thing about the beauty dish from Hensel. I take out the deflector inside. I change that for a small grid, and then I also use the big grid on the front, so you get a really nice pinpointing quality of light. Anyway, so model against the backdrop, beauty dish on the model to make that pinpoint light, and that's the one with the strobe. That's the one you're gonna see first. After that, I just turned off the strobes, and then I took some shots with the ambient light coming in from our door into the studio. Now the nice thing about this one is I didn't remove anything from the back, so it looks a little bit like she's literally in a location. And we talked about this with our student, and I actually told him, like, when you look at those old images from Avedon, from Helmut Newton, often there was a little bit of stuff in the studio because they shoot a model in the studio, right? And at that period in time, of course they could take it out. Maybe they didn't have Photoshop, but they could crop it out, or while shooting they could take it away. Why did they leave it in the scene? I don't know. Maybe you know. Leave comments below if you know. But I think it also spices up the scene a little bit. Why not just show that you're shooting your model in the studio? Do make sure that it looks nicely. So make sure that nothing is growing out of her head or something is interfering with the image. But just by leaving some accessory in the back, you can get a really nice storytelling quality in your images. So that's what we tried to do there. Only the ambient light, no strobes. So let's take a look at those results. Okay guys, that was it for today. The first workshop. This was a trial workshop, so I only had 1 attendee just to see if everything works out. In all honesty, it did work out pretty well. I didn't teach for about 2.5 months, and in all honesty, it went pretty smooth and we got a lot of great ideas. That's the cool thing about not shooting for a while. You get all these ideas that you want to work out. Overall, I think a very successful workshop, 4 sets, great images. And overall, I think we proved that with a 1.5 meter distance and proper care, of course, it's safe to do a workshop. So I feel a little bit better about it now. I still wanted to see if it was possible, like, you do a metering of the light, for example. How often do I make the mistake that I come too close to the model? Well, it only happened once today, and then immediately you think about, okay, 1 step back. Now, in all honesty, I hope there's a vaccine or a treatment very, very soon, because this is not the way that I like to teach or the way that I like to shoot. But it is possible. And for the time being, I'm willing to do a few steps back in creativity and in metering my light to be safe, right? So for you guys also, stay safe. Don't work if you don't trust it. Just think about your health. Okay, so that was it. If you like what we do, please subscribe to the channel, leave comments below, and of course smash that like button because we really like that. But most of all, tell other people about our channel so we can grow. See you again for the next workshop. And of course, in between, I'm a lot on social media, so just ask any questions you want, also about these images or the video. We don't mind, just ask whatever you want. See you again next time. Bye guys.